Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is the Miskatonic Reviver, a Reanimator inspired cocktail. I'm going to start with our shaker with ice, as usual. To that, we're going to add vodka. 1 1/2 ounces of vodka. Next, melon liqueur, 1 ounce. It's pretty green. Maybe like the serum. Next, pineapple juice, 1 ounce. Lime juice from the plastic lime, 3/4 of an ounce. One dash bitters. Then we shake. Next, we're going to strain our cocktail into a tumbler filled with ice. It's pretty green, boys and girls. Then, we're going to take some tonic water and top it off. And there you have it, boys and girls. The Miskatonic Reviver. Delicious. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
When I listen to the band Rush, I'm always reminded that they are what I call a musician's band. What I mean is, if you are a musician, you appreciate Rush on a whole other level. It's not just really good, but musically intriguing. I feel a bit the same about this week's movie on the Scary Spirits podcast, The Reanimator, but for horror aficionados instead of the musically inclined. This movie is full of references and homages to all manner of horror films. Being a more casual viewer, I'm quite sure I missed many of them. Greg didn't, though. But hey, for us uninitiated, it's got a really cool neon reagent, and that's just enough awesomeness. Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary movies and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are
threw
you,
me
Karen?
for a loop. Looking at
I know.
You're mixing it up, making it exciting. I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
I'm okay, Karen. Thanks for asking.
It's what we do.
All right, Karen, I believe this film, was it my choice? Is it my turn already?
I don't think it's
Once
going to
again?
surprise anyone that this was your choice.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, Karen.
Do you not like my tone?
I don't like your tone.
What movie did you pick for us, Greg?
Karen, I've chosen the 1985 cult classic, The Reanimator.
Any reason you chose that film?
There is, Karen. The Reanimator was released on October 18th, 1985. This podcast comes out on October 18th, Karen.
2023?
2023.
Awesome. What excellent timing you have.
Yeah, so we're celebrating the 38th anniversary of its release.
Did you see it in the theater?
I did not. Did you?
No, this is my first time viewing it. I'm guessing it's not your first time.
It is not my first time. I think I watched it right after I got like Netflix.
Oh, so
So
within the last 5 years?
It's not been all that long ago. Well,
Or wait,
probably
the
longer ago than that.
The mail-in DVD?
No, the streaming one, I think.
Oh, okay. Because remember when you used to be able to they'd mail you DVDs?
Yeah, I remember. It hasn't been that long ago, but it's been quite a few. Well, seems like a long time ago.
Did you know about it or did you just happen upon it?
Yes.
So you
I
knew about it.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you hear about and finally decide I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch that. Much like lots of the films we do.
It's true. Do you have a drink to go with it?
I do, Karen. It's called the Miskatonic Reviver, a Reanimator inspired cocktail.
Well, that certainly seems appropriate.
It is appropriate. Would you like to know how to make it, Karen?
Of course.
We're going to need 1.5 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of melon liqueur, 1 ounce pineapple juice, 3/4 ounce lime juice, dash of bitters, and tonic water. We're going to combine all the ingredients except for the tonic water in a mixing glass with ice, mix it all up, and we're going to strain it into a tumbler with ice.
Oh, I shook it.
I did. I shook it too.
Okay,
I put mine in a shaker.
All right.
It says in a cocktail mixing glass. To me, that's a shaker. Then we strain all the ingredients into a tumbler filled with ice, and we top it with tonic water, and then we serve.
And enjoy?
No, we just serve.
Oh, I'd say it's enjoyable.
Me too. I like the pineapple juice.
With the melon liqueur, it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
it's a lanai.
They get the tonic there too. It's fine.
It's a little lanai.
And I bet if I had this under like, a black light, it would glow because tonic water.
Oh, you should did you do that on the YouTube video? Greg makes all our cocktails on our YouTube channel. Definitely go check it out. Scary Spirits on YouTube.
Yeah, Scary Spirits podcast, I think. But whatever. Doesn't matter. You can find us, Scary Spirits.
Just look for Greg.
Yeah. Should we give our friends and listeners time to make their own Miskatonic Reviver, Karen?
Absolutely.
Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Might you have a brief synopsis of this film from 1985 for us, Karen?
Very brief.
I know you remember 1985. I believe we've discussed it already.
Lots of good memories from 1985.
All right, go on. Tell us all the story.
About 1985 or the movie?
Well, sure, yeah. I'd like to hear that too.
I got a few stories from 1985. That might
be more interesting, Karen, actually.
At the University
Don't we all, Karen? Don't we all?
At the University of Zurich, Herbert West brings his dead professor back to life. Following the horrific side effects involved in the procedure, West moves to the USA to further his studies.
That wasn't that short, but thank you. All right, Karen, tell me everything you really enjoyed about this film. What did you really like?
Well, first I have a question.
I knew you would have questions, but I thought they would come at the end. So, okay, go on.
Is it supposed to be campy?
It is.
It's
It's a horror comedy.
But I missed comedy, but I get the campiness, but I didn't feel the comedy. It reminded me a lot of Evil Dead. That kind of a little over the top, but I couldn't tell if it was trying to be serious or not serious. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But in a way, because it was over the top.
Yes.
Not like there weren't jokes. At least I didn't. I mean, there were references to other horror films, and I get that, but there wasn't like jokes, you know, and that's kind of when I saw comedy, that's what I was expecting, but it's campy, I guess. Okay. So it's supposed to be like that. Okay. I thought
it's funny in its absurdity.
Okay. Then that makes perfect sense. Because I was like, is it supposed to be this silly? Or, you know, because I didn't know a lot about it. I don't read a lot about the films before I watch them because I want to have my own reaction to it and not taint my reaction by reading a bunch of reviews or something and then spitting out what they say. It's just the way I do it. It's not, doesn't matter one way or another, but I like to just see it and then form an opinion and see if I'm right or wrong with what I say, you know. I think that then with that,
I pretty much like to do the same, Karen, but
knowing that the acting's good, knowing that it's supposed to be that way. There are a couple of shots in the movie that I really liked.
In the basement?
Yes.
When the light was swinging?
Yes.
Yes.
And there's another where she walks out of the elevator towards the morgue and the camera's pulling away from her and it just gives you this creepy feeling. I really
that Overlook Hotel, The Shining feeling or something.
It's just there are a lot of nuances to it, I think. It kind of reminded me of The Brain That Wouldn't Die in some ways, which I used to watch with my mom back in the day. And it's one of the first ones we did on here. And so that kind of made me chuckle because that was so absurd. And yet here it is again.
And this story predates that though, you know.
The story does, but the movie doesn't. Right. Yes.
So you said earlier, it referenced lots of other horror films. Well, I'm thinking maybe lots of other horror films reference this story. You know what I mean? Like what other horror films? Oh,
yes. Well, I agree, but I think this movie reminded me of other movies. I've not read the story. Is this pre or post Mary Shelley? It must be post because she was 1800s.
Yeah, Lovecraft.
Lovecraft was early 1900s.
Yeah, it's this was written 1921, 1922. It first appeared in print in July of 1922 as a serial. You know, it was like one of those monthly magazine things, and nice. Tell a little story every month. It's a short story.
Overall, I liked it. I thought the characters were good. I do, again, like when there's not a cast of thousands and I can keep track of who's who. I really like that in these kind of movies. So that was very distinct, which is up my alley. I'm sure there are some famous scenes, at least one that it's known for, I would bet. And I can see why it has a cult following. What about you? What did you like?
I agree with everything you said. It's fun. I think it's fun. And even the effects are, you know, it's 1985 and they're not even really great for 1985, but it's fine for what it is, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess, okay. So yes, if you go in knowing it's that. So there are a few things I didn't like, but I didn't really know that it wasn't trying to be so serious, like the makeup on the corpses and things. There were things that weren't great, like the effects and all of that. And just moving on to what
I think I'm just talking like, you know, it's obviously it's all practical effects. There is no CGI in this, right? So it's all makeup and masks and, you know, latex and fake heads and, you know, all that kind of cool stuff.
Back when effects people were effects people.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you liked?
Music was good.
Sounded like Psycho a lot. Is that intentional?
I don't know.
Oh.
But the sets were good too. There's only a couple of them, right?
Yeah, a couple of walls shake when they shouldn't and stuff like that. But It doesn't look cheaply made, if that's what you're
No, it did
implying.
not.
Yeah.
Because when they walked into the morgue for the first time, he was walking down that hallway, right? And the door opens, and when he was walking down the hallway, I'm like, well, this looks like it could be a hallway anywhere, right? It's pretty empty, devoid of anything except a guy sitting at a table, a security guard. And like the guy says, I don't know why he's guarding the morgue, but whatever. No one's trying to get in, and no one wants to get in, and nobody's trying to get out. But then when they opened the door to the morgue, I thought, well, that's a really good looking room, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't believe it was a real morgue, but they did a good job making a room look like a morgue, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. There were some boobs in it.
Always in the plus column for you.
Even corpse boobs.
Yeah. Hey, Dad, I'm in a movie. That always makes me crack up when there are roles like that.
Got plenty of blood.
Yeah, there's definitely gore if that's what you're after.
So there's several different versions of this, I'm kind of curious as to which one you watched.
I watched Amazon.
Well, there's 2 different ones on Amazon too.
Oh.
There's a rated R, and then there's
That's
a
what I
rated
watched.
18 plus.
Oh, I watched the rated R.
I watched the 18 plus one.
Okay.
And if you look at the length, it's 1 minute longer. The 18 plus is 1 minute longer.
More gore?
I don't know. I'm thinking there's got to be 1 minute more of something in there.
I know, but if it's gore, we're not going to be able to, because sometimes it's just like a bloodbath. So
yeah, it's true.
I mean, Did he pop the eyeballs out in your version? Yeah, he did. So it might be hard to narrow down that minute.
Could be. What about sequel potential, Karen? Did you enjoy the sequel potential?
Well, of course. It's right up front there. There's sequel potential. It's not even possible. It's 100%.
Anything you didn't like?
Well, like I said, because I wasn't 100% sure it was campy, there are some effects that are a little ridiculous. Intestines flying out of somebody's body and strangling them like a python. I was like, this is just nonsense. But even more than that, just because, those things happen in horror films, there were just so many bad decisions made, that it was just, why is this happening? But again, if it's a parody of other horror films, of course, those things happen, but you wonder.
I don't think it's a parody, though, of other horror
Not
films.
A parody, but copying other films, kind of. I mean, there's no way you would have let him move in with you. He was so freaking weird. You would have said no. Or after you see his first experiment, you wouldn't hang out with him anymore, or I don't know. There just seemed like bad decisions all around.
In the short story, apparently it's the narrator doesn't have a name. It's just the narrator, who we assume is the Daniel character, right, in this one.
Yeah.
And then the short story starts following him or helping him because he kind of has like a hero worship thing going on with him.
Okay, but that doesn't seem to be the case in this movie.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know. It just seemed like red flags everywhere and nobody pays any attention to any of them. And just the headless body being so incredibly agile at doing everything. How is this happening? And,
right.
How is he doing it? I mean, I thought, okay, well, maybe the head's guiding him as he can see, but then the head's in a bag and he's still able to do it. And, if you've been in an office 1,000 times, you probably know pretty much where to go and find things or whatever, but it would still be much more difficult. And why does the Dr. Hill have a padded room right off his office in a medical building? They're just little things where you're like, why? What? But it helps the campiness of it all. So I was, like I said, waffling, oh, it's campy. No, it's kind of serious. Well, no. And so there were things, they don't really bother me. They were just odd. Did you not like anything about it?
No, I really didn't. I guess because I've seen it before and I kind of understood
what they were going for. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, if you really want to get critical and why does he keep injecting people a lot bigger than he is?
Or why did he eject the body instead of just the head? I mean, I know he was experimenting.
Because he never done it before.
I know, but he could have waited. I would have taunted the head. You're dead. I have control. But instead he should have done one and then the other. I don't know.
Well, he's driven. He's a driven scientist.
He's a one-track mind, definitely.
He is.
But so was Frankenstein, right? In the movies that we watched. There's no talking sense. Nobody can do that. And he portrays that well.
Yeah.
But he's just weird from the very beginning. Frankenstein makes friends because he doesn't seem so odd at first. But this guy, 100%, is just odd. Like you would know it.
Yep. I agree.
But then I'm friends with you, so I guess you can't say what people will find friendships,
But he is well acted. He does play the part well.
Yeah, he doesn't break, that's for sure.
Anything else you liked or didn't like?
No, I think it's definitely worth a watch. It depends on your mood, I think. What are you looking for in a movie? Like you sitting around with some beers with your buddies. This is a good one. You want something a little creepier? Maybe not. But if you're trying to just up the gore and have a good time, it's good for that, I would think. It's kind of like Evil Dead and that kind of franchise where you could watch these together and it would be a good double feature.
It is also one of the first depictions of zombies as reanimated corpses.
Oh, really?
I guess if you call them zombies, they're reanimated corpses. So, or scientifically reanimated corpses. The story.
Oh, the story, not the movie. Yeah.
Not the movie. Yeah. All right. What kind of cocktail rating you want to give it, Karen?
I'd give it a 3. Do you agree?
I agree.
I bet in 1985, though, that was definitely a shocking amount of gore.
But it was still campy.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, it wasn't that over the top. And I mean, it fit the story. They didn't just...
It's no more gore than like Nightmare on Elm Street or...
No, but I'm just saying they didn't just throw in gore to throw in gore. That it stayed in character, kind of. It stayed in its lane. I mean, yes, there's a lot of gore, but they didn't just throw it in willy-nilly. It's kind of part of the story, I think. At least I bought it as part of the story.
You like to hear a review from the time, Karen?
Only if it's Roger Ebert.
I have Roger Ebert's, but I'm not going to read that one.
Oh, okay. What else you got for Critics Corner?
So first, this has a 94% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, it knows its audience.
7.2 out of 10 on IMDb, and 92% of Google users like it.
High scores.
Yep. Review I have is from the LA Times, Karen.
Oh, fancy.
October 25th, 1985. Reanimator, despite its, and I will be paraphrasing as always, Reanimator, despite its title, is not a cartoon. It's simply the best, funniest horror picture to come along in ages. Winner of a special critics prize at Cannes, it could become a classic of the genre like Night of the Living Dead or Texas Chainsaw Massacre and enjoy a long life as a cult film.
They called it.
They did. That's why I picked this one. To describe what happens is not merely to spoil the show, but to invite a repugnance that the film itself skirts because its makers have been shrewd enough to balance the blood and guts with laughter. The special effects pass inspection, yet are so outrageous that you can't take them seriously. Reanimator is therefore not really all that scary, although it's absolutely out of the question for the faint of heart and or impressionable youngsters. It is rather comically gross in the way that Animal House was as a fraternity comedy. Bruce Abbott and Barbara Crampton as his girlfriend are attractive, capable leads, and like their director and acting colleagues, come from the theater. David Gale has gruesome fun as a crazed member of the medical school faculty and so does Robert Sampson as its ill-fated dean. But the big noise is Jeffrey Combs, a small, compact man of terrific intensity and concentration. Reanimator is Times rated mature.
I can see that. I mean, there's full frontal nudity in it.
There is. First, second.
It's pretty long, actually.
So, yeah.
And well lit.
I was wondering if that was part that was in the 18 plus and not the R.
No.
Okay. Talking about when she's lying on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There might have been more of the sex scene than I saw. That's possible.
Might have been. Yeah, it was pretty graphic.
I got the idea, but I'm not sure I saw, we'll get to it, I guess.
You might have. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows where that minute is? Could be in the beginning. Shit, who knows?
The mysterious minute.
Okay, are you ready to get into it?
I just have a brief thing about the short story.
Okay.
Which was called Herbert West, Reanimator, as you mentioned, is a short story by American horror fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft. It was written between October 1921 and June 1922. It was first serialized in February through July 1922 in the publication Homebrew. And it does say the story is the basis of the 1985 horror film Reanimator and its sequels, in addition to numerous other adaptations in various media. The story is the first to mention Lovecraft's fictional Miskatonic University. It is also notable as one of the first depictions of zombies, as you said, as scientifically reanimated corpses with animalistic and uncontrollable temperaments. It's often cited as one of Lovecraft's most explicitly racist stories. But you don't see any of that in the movie. And I haven't read the story, so I don't know what that is referring to.
The story is available on Wiki. I mean, it's there, the whole thing. It's in the public domain because it was published before January 1st, 1928, apparently. Have you ever read any Lovecraft?
I have not read any.
Or tried to?
No.
I've tried to.
Is he wordy?
He's very wordy. And from what I understand, also pretty racist. So.
Well, this must be a doozy short story. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't read it. I don't know what it's referring to, but in case anyone's interested, there you go.
So there's 6 parts to it, and I guess that was what each month or whatever, or each week whenever it came out, and they're not terribly long, so I don't think it takes long to read. But like I said, if it's anything else like Lovecraft, wordy. Tried to read it.
Horror community loves him, though. I mean, for inspiration, the basis of the story, not the racism. But I'm just saying a lot of his stories end up in film, at least their core identities.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just thinking the Thing, John Carpenter's, has a lot of Lovecraftian stuff in it, too.
One of the Hammer films did, too, wasn't it? That you picked? Where they're kind of aliens coming through the church door and
oh yeah, in the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, but you said it was Lovecraftian, maybe, but maybe not solely based on something he wrote.
Right.
But
no, yeah, true. Okay, are you ready to get into it?
Yep.
Reanimator 1985. We both watched it on Amazon Prime, right?
Yes.
You watched the rated R 1 minute or 1 hour 25-minute version. I watched the rated 18 plus 1 hour 26 minutes. I got an extra minute for my $2.99. Or you may have paid less for it. I don't know.
No, I paid $2.99. You're a better man than I am, Greg.
Do you have any warnings or anything?
Mm-mm.
I didn't either. It just said rated 18 plus. Film opens on apparently University of Zurich. And police break into the room of Dr. Gruber.
Yeah, there's a ruckus behind the door.
And Dr. West
screaming.
They bust in and we see who we learn is Dr. West over him with a syringe, and Dr. Gruber is like convulsing.
But he's in medical school, so he's not a doctor yet.
No, but they call him Dr. West, don't they?
They do.
When they're knocking on the door?
Yes, but he's a third-year medical student, so he's not a doctor yet.
So then Dr. Gruber gets up and his eyes start bulging out. Did you see that part?
Yes, and they explode.
And blood starts spitting out of him.
Yes.
And then he
And
drops.
the nurse says, "You killed him." And the young man, who I didn't know his name yet, but it's
Yes.
West. "I did not kill him. I gave him life."
I gave him life.
Credits. With lots of neon anatomy drawings.
Yeah. So then we cut to Miskatonic Medical School, Arkham, Massachusetts. At least that's what it says on the screen, Karen.
Yeah, is that anything to do with the DC comics?
I don't think so.
Okay. Isn't there Arkham in that? Isn't
Yes,
there Arkham
is.
Asylum? Okay.
Yes, there is. Yes. Could be related, but I don't know. And we see a guy giving CPR to a woman. And I wrote 2 bare breasts.
That's where I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm in the movie." Because she's naked from the waist up and they're trying to resuscitate her. So, Greg, how long do you think physicians generally perform CPR before they give up? We don't know how long they've been doing it, and he's sweaty. So it's hard to do. People think it's easy from the movies, but it's actually a very difficult thing to do.
Right. And they're trying to shock her and everything, right?
Yeah. But to push hard enough, that's why there's a lot of broken ribs when that happens, is you really have to push hard to get pressure on the heart.
I'll say 1 minute.
Before you give up and say they're dead? Jeez, do not even. Well, she's gone. 1 minute?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, in a young, healthy person, it's much longer. In 2000,
you're telling me that they, depending on how old the person is or how
well, it depends on their health.
They are,
yeah, like
they'll go longer. And so if it's me, they probably do like a minute.
The physicians released a statement, and this is quoted from 2020. CPR should be performed for at least 20 minutes before ceasing resuscitation.
Wow.
So if you're younger and they think you can make it.
But they usually have a team and they each take turns.
20 to 30 minutes. I don't know if you watch football or not, but last year.
Who, me?
I meant the audience, but when Damar Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills went down, they would, on a healthy athlete like that, they would just keep performing it more, over and they did. Like, it depends, if you're 65 or 80, they might do 10 minutes to try to get you back. But if you have healthy organs and, a healthy heart, they're going to keep going for at least 20 minutes.
Okay. It's good to know.
20 minutes, Greg. You can't quit on me in a minute. Like, well, sorry. I tried.
Karen, I don't think you want me working on you. Period.
16 broken ribs. No, but it's much longer than.
Well, I know you got to
think.
take your fingers up above the xiphoid process, Karen, because that's the tip of your sternum, and that cartilage, and it breaks easily. So you don't want to break that and puncture a lung while you're trying to resuscitate somebody, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would remember
it.
I
know a little.
I would just be pushing on your chest. But all I'm trying to say is it's a lot harder than it looks in the movies, and they do it a lot longer. I mean, he was sweaty, so they were portraying it pretty well here, and he didn't want to quit, but the other doctor in the room told him it was time.
Flatline. She's gone. Take her to the morgue. So he takes her to the morgue, and the security guard in there says, "Dr. Hill's in there doing an autopsy, just so you know." So he takes the body in. We see the guy cutting on a body or whatever. And then the dean comes in behind Daniel, who we learn is Daniel, and startles him and introduces him to Herbert West, their new student.
Who's in from Zurich.
And Dr. Hill and Herbert West don't get off on the right foot, I wrote.
Well, the dean leans over to Dr. Hill and says, he worked with Dr. Gruber. And then there's a little bit of eyeball acting there. And it comes out later that West does, or does it start here?
Dr. Hill pretty much, Dr. Hill pretty much stole Dr. Gruber's work.
Yes, so they say that here. But Dr. Hill, the dean says, is one of the most brilliant scientists in the university, and he has the most money in grants, which is a big effing deal in academia because they don't pay for your research. You have to fund it yourself through grants.
Herbert tells Dr. Hill that his theories on brain are outdated, basically.
We do see Dr. Hill using a laser, which we should just mention here. He invented it, it turns out.
Yeah.
For lobotomies.
So then we see Daniel. Sometimes I call him Daniel, sometimes I call him Kane. So Daniel and his girlfriend having relations, Karen, under a Talking Heads poster.
Well, he puts up a sign on the bulletin board.
He does.
Looking for a roommate. But his girlfriend starts kissing him in the hallway as he's hanging it. And she's going, no, no, no. And then you cut immediately to yes, yes, yes. In the bedroom under the Talking Heads poster.
Yes. Stop making sense by the Talking Heads. We see 2 bare breasts, Karen.
And a black cat in the mix a little bit.
Yes,
Rufus.
Black cat. And we learn that the girl is Megan, is the dean's daughter.
Yes. So she can't stay over.
So she's got to leave. He doesn't want her to, but she tells him as soon as he gets his MD, she will marry him, but she will support him and help him in every way she can up until then and try to be with them as much as possible.
Her dad's pretty hard line, they imply here.
So she opens the door to leave, and Herbert West is standing there, and he's come there for the roommate.
Yeah, he stole the sign.
And after seeing the basement, Herbert says he will take it. It's perfect, but Megan isn't so sure it's a good idea.
Yeah, she's shaking her head slightly no when she's talking to Dan.
But
Don't do it.
But Herbert's got the wad of cash.
He's got the money.
Saying you won't even know I'm here until the first of the month. So Daniel says, fine. Yeah, takes the money. Next, we see Dr. Hill giving a class, and I guess he's doing an autopsy, removing a brain or whatever. Dr. Hill tells them that after the body dies, the brain can only remain functional for 6 to 12 minutes or
Okay,
viable.
but stop. Yes. So he's using an autopsy saw.
Mm-hmm. A bone saw.
A bone saw.
Cranium saw, is that what it's called? Is it called a
The
cranium
bone saw. And if you were going to get the autopsy saw, how much do you think that's going to put you back?
That saw?
Yeah.
I bet it's fucking expensive, Karen, because it's probably surgical stainless steel and all this other bull crap, which you don't really need if you're working on a cadaver. What difference does it make?
Well, if you're going to study whatever's underneath,
I could just use my
pocket knife.
No, my
Swiss
Dremel.
Army.
My Dremel.
Oh, your Dremel. That's not strong enough.
They make blades that are strong enough, I guarantee you.
Okay, well, I don't want you to show me. So you would need it for precision, because if you want to make sure you don't nick anything underneath, because that could make your results different. And also is much quicker if it's that strong. You could do it with your Dremel, but you'd be like 2 hours later.
No, you'd be surprised what a Dremel can do.
I don't want to know, Greg. Let's move on.
Saying.
So how much do you think you would have to pay?
So you're still going to make me say a price.
Yep.
How much do I think a Dremel? I'm going to say...
It's not a Dremel. It's a bone saw for an autopsy.
A surgical Dremel. Let's see. I'm going to say $7,999.99.
Well, you must be getting the extra fancy one.
I was going to start at 10,000, but I thought,
no, they're around 3,000.
Okay.
$29.99.99 was the one in the middle.
$29.99.99.
So $2,999. Yeah.
Yes. And 99 cents.
Yeah.
Hello, boys and girls. You know, doing a podcast can be thirsty work. Lucky for you, we have all our drink recipes on our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want to see how each drink is made, hit up our YouTube channel, Scary Spirits Podcast, and watch me play bartender. I show you how to make every themed drink. Now, back to the show.
And I wrote Herbert in the class, Herbert West, and he breaks a pencil every time the doctor says something that he disagrees with. Pretty much.
And the doctor says, perhaps you should get a pen.
Yeah. But
But
Herbert calls him out right in front of all the other students.
Which reminded me of Frankenstein. Remember when Frankenstein's
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein?
Yes, that we watched a little while ago. And he calls out the professor right on the first time that they meet, right in the middle of class, just like this.
And Dr. Hill says it's going to be a pleasure to fail him.
Yes.
Then we see Dr. Hill having dinner with the dean and his daughter, Megan.
Celebrating.
Because I guess he got a grant for his stupid laser saw or whatever.
Okay. But the dean is calling him a genius because he's got a grant from the National Science Foundation, which was formed, when do you think, Greg?
1839.
May 10th, 1950. The National Science Foundation is an independent agency of the United States federal government that supports fundamental research and education in all the non-medical fields of science and engineering. Its medical counterpart is the National Institutes of Health. I was a little surprised that he hadn't gotten a grant from the NIH instead of the NSF, but, it seems medical to me what he was doing.
And Dr. Hill learns that Megan is dating Dan. And I wrote, he seems to have a thing for her.
It's a creepy thing, too. The Dr. Hill, yes.
Daniel comes, picks her up, and they leave. They're going to have a study night, Karen.
Mm-hmm. She's uncomfortable. He makes it so obvious, Dr. Hill does, that she's uncomfortable because he toasts to her and he keeps trying to get her to drink wine and all this stuff, but she definitely is not interested in him at all.
Cut to Megan and Daniel at the apartment. Megan isn't comfortable with Herbert West living there. He's locked up in his room all day long, and the cat's afraid of him, runs away from him. And then they realize the cat's missing and began looking for him. Rufus, right?
Rufus, yes.
So eventually Megan decides to go into Herbert's room and look for him. And she finds Rufus the cat in a fridge in his room.
Not alive.
Nope.
Which I don't like.
No, Herbert comes in and interrupts her.
Well, he's pissed.
Yeah. He explains by this time Daniel has come running in, and Herbert explains that he found the cat dead. He was going to tell him. It knocked the trash over and got its head stuck in a jar. It suffocated.
It was dead when he found it.
Yep.
Megan doesn't believe him.
Nope. Here I wrote, Herbert threatens to tell the dean that Daniel is sleeping with Megan.
Yeah, he says he'll get him kicked out on moral grounds or something. So he threatens him to keep his mouth shut.
Then we see Daniel waking in the middle of the night to sounds of screams, ? I wrote.
They're cat screams. Anyone who has a cat would know that scream.
He grabs a baseball bat and goes to investigate. He knocks on Herbert's door, but there's no answer. So he breaks down the door to the basement and finds Herbert down there fighting with the cat.
But he doesn't know what it is.
No, it's on his back. And he's running around the basement like a crazy man.
Yeah, so Dan tries to help him.
Yeah,
because he doesn't know what it is. So he's chasing his own cat without knowing it's his cat and trying to kill it.
Yeah, with a baseball bat. And Herbert, I wrote, does he have a polo stick?
No, it's a croquet.
Stick.
No, it's a croquet mallet.
Are you sure? It looked like too small to be a croquet mallet.
Well, a polo stick would be bigger because you're on a horse when you use that.
It's longer, but I think the mallet part of it is smaller.
All right, maybe. I don't know. I just said it was a croquet mallet. But you're right. I didn't pay that close attention. Could be a croquet
mallet. But then the cat attacks Daniel and he kills it with a bat.
Throws it against the wall. Yeah. Then West just starts laughing creepily. I don't know what's up with that.
And Herbert tells Daniel about his reanimation agent. Herbert tells him he has conquered brain death, and he tries to get Daniel to assist him. Daniel doesn't believe it.
He's broken the 6 to 12 minute barrier.
Daniel doesn't believe that he really reanimated the cat.
He says you just
drugged it or whatever.
Drugged it, and yeah.
So Herbert says, "Well, is the cat dead now? Would you agree that the cat is dead now?" And it's pretty dead, Karen.
Yeah, it's mangled.
So Herbert,
I didn't like this part at all.
Herbert injects it with the serum to prove it to him, and the cat comes back to life. Of course, Megan enters and interrupts him.
Yeah, what's she doing there? It's the middle of the night. He just woke up in the middle of the night.
I know. I don't know. That was one of the things that I like. Why is she there? But whatever.
Those are the little things that bugged me when I thought it was a real trying to be serious. Like she just came out of nowhere.
Yeah. So then we see Daniel trying to tell the dean that Herbert has brought dead tissue back to life. And the dean isn't having anything. I don't know why Daniel was at the dean's office telling him this shit.
Well, I don't know why that little bit of information, when the dean doesn't believe him, gets him kicked out of school. Like,
No.
what?
Well, he doesn't get kicked. He gets Herbert kicked out of school.
Well, he takes away Daniel's student loan.
Takes away Daniel's student loan. Yeah. And
Which I
expels
think,
Herbert.
Yeah, I think he means like scholarship.
Right.
Because, and he says your own daughter has seen it. Well, that didn't go over well either.
No. I said good day.
Yes. And Daniel says, don't take it out on Meg. She tried to stop me.
I said good day. Next, we see Daniel rolling a body into the morgue.
And the guard lets him in because Daniel seems like one of those nice guys that talks to everyone and everybody knows him and he's a hard worker and all that. That's his reputation because the guard knows him, knows his name, opens the door for him, doesn't have an issue with him at all.
Gets into the morgue and we see that it's Herbert under the blanket. So then they go into the freezer, Karen, in the morgue down there, and they begin searching bodies for one that they can reanimate.
And I'm thinking, why is Daniel doing this at this point? I mean, he has nothing left to threaten him with. Why doesn't he just say no? Curiosity, maybe? I don't know. Or maybe West is very convincing.
Could be.
Well, I have one question. Would a morgue freak you out?
Yep.
Okay. And then would somebody convince you, hey, let's go down to the morgue and reanimate some corpses? I mean, it just seems like that's a big jump from where I was a
medical student. I mean,
no,
who knows? So they eventually find a John Doe with no apparent injuries, like no heart, or whatever, no like shotgun blast to the head or whatever the other one was they found. And
a burn victim, I think.
Yeah. Then Herbert gives Daniel a tape recorder and says, begin recording. So they're recording the experiment.
On October 10th, it's a male subject, early 20s, no deformities. Maybe it was heart failure. And they say they inject 15 cc's of reagent in the back of his head. That was more than 15 cc's. And what color is it, Greg? Green fluorescent, right?
Green fluorescent, yeah.
It's very fluorescent. So I was trying to figure out how they did that, and there are green fluorescent proteins produced by jellyfish, and it emits bioluminescence in the green zone of the visible spectrum. And they use it in molecular biology as a marker. And there's fluorescein, was named for its intense green fluorescence. It imparts to alkaline solutions a color visible even at dilutions of 1 to 50 million. Green fluorescent protein, I don't know if you have to put like ultraviolet light behind it or something, but it was the neon green, this reagent that he had. And I don't know what they used to make it neon green, but those are possibilities because you can buy those to make it fluoresce. But I don't know if you need, like, if they were shining a black light on it or if it just does it on its own. Because when we did it,
pretty consistent.
I know when we did it in the lab, you had to put it on top of a UV light and you would see it. But I don't know. It's very neon green. It's impressive.
Then the dean and Megan arrive at the hospital, and the dean is told that Daniel is in the morgue.
And she's arguing. She says, he loves me. We're getting married. And the dean's like, I've seen this happen, even to good medical students. I guess they lose their minds. I don't know.
Next, we see Herbert injecting more reanimation agent into the body of John Doe.
Yeah, at first I thought, how's he going to get it in the brain? The skull is blocking the way, but he's doing it in the back of the neck at the brainstem.
And we see the dean, and he's getting security, or
he's fired up.
I don't know. He's not getting security. He's making an announcement to have Daniel report to security desk L.
Yeah, would you do that? if you were in trouble and they're like, Greg Wallace, come to the security desk on level L, you'd be like, well, no, I'm not doing that.
So they head down to the morgue, Dean and Megan.
Well, just the dean does. She's being watched, isn't she, by another doctor up there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the nurse or whatever.
I think it's the doctor that originally called the death of the first patient we saw.
And just as they are leaving, the body comes back to life.
And it's strong.
It
just
is.
like Frankenstein.
And John Doe throws Herbert and Daniel around the room.
The freezer, yeah. Or refrigerator. What I think they're in a refrigerator.
The dean enters and tries to enter the freezer.
So it's that metal, that heavy metal
Yes.
room.
It's like a freezer door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk-in freezer. The John Doe body busts down the door on top of the dean.
Yes.
Then he picks the dean up and Dean tries to fight him off and he bites the dean's finger off and throws him around the room.
I will say one thing I noticed about this movie, and I don't know if you did, but the sound effects are pretty good. When there needs to be squished, there's squish.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's good, and it's very
They're there, but I don't know if it's well done, but
well, I'm saying like every
obvious.
Yes. Like you notice when something's put in a body or out of a body, there's a squish.
So Herbert finds a bone saw and puts it right through John Doe's chest, like a drill.
Yeah.
Then Herbert tries to get Daniel to help him bring the dean back to life because he gone.
Yeah, the John Doe killed him. Threw him around the room, just choked him. But the other thing I wondered, when he puts the bone saw through John Doe, I didn't think corpses bled that much.
He's reanimated corpse.
Well, I guess that's part of it, but I was just looking I'm sure I was ding, ding, ding all day long today, the things I was looking up. The dead normally can't bleed for very long. Livor mortis, when blood settles in the lowest part of the body because of gravity, begins soon after death, and the blood is set within about 6 hours. This is according to a forensic scientist. But they can bleed for a while, but not, I get it's reanimated, but I was just wondering how didn't take long for all that blood to start pumping through him again, because when he puts that saw through, lots of blood comes out.
So they tie the dean to a table and begin to inject him with the serum. The doctor who was supposed to watch Megan leaves her unattended because apparently there's an emergency, and she makes her way to the morgue.
Yeah, they're only going to put 12 cc's in the dean because his body is so fresh.
Back in the morgue, they inject the dean, and he does come back to life.
And then they show Megan approaching the morgue, and that's the shot I was talking about. She doesn't look comfortable. She looks very cautious.
Mm-hmm.
And then the camera pulls back from her, and it's a good shot, I thought.
Yeah, Megan arrives at the morgue, and then the dean attacks Herbert and Daniel. Security guard enters after all the ruckus, and Herbert tries to explain everything.
Well, he blames the dean.
Yeah.
He said he just went crazy. We don't know what happened. He started ranting and raving. And Megan's like, no, he was just angry. But the dean does say in the corner, arrest them. Do you hear him say that?
I don't remember it now.
Yeah, he said arrest them.
Security guard says he's calling the police. Next, we see the dean in a straitjacket in a padded room right next to Dr. Hill's office, apparently.
That's suspicious right there. Not only is it right next door, there's a window where he can watch.
One-way mirror or whatever. Yeah. Or two-way mirror.
Two-way mirror where he can watch what's going on inside the padded room.
And Dr. Hill tells Megan he wants her to sign a release so he can perform exploratory surgery on the dean to find out what is wrong with him. She signs, and he also tells her that he wants her to trust him and to come to him if she needs anything or is lonely, because she's all alone right now.
Yeah, it's very creepy. He does start to show her on a model, a head and neck model, what he's going to do. And she says, no, I don't want to see what you're going to do. Just make him better. And have I ever told you the story where I saw a cadaver, a head and neck cadaver like that? It was real, though. It was a real person. So did I tell you? I don't
No,
know
I
if
don't
I've
think
said it
so.
on here before. And if I have, I'm sorry. I'm
Tell us,
repeating
Dr.
myself.
Karen.
So I was in graduate school. Where I went to graduate school was the medical school too. And one of my friends was she didn't clean up after things. She supplied auger plates and, things that people needed to do experiments. And there was a head and neck cadaver in this one room. And she'd go in and she'd do her thing. And then she'd come back out and I would beg her, let me see it. Let me see it. Let me see it. I want to see it. And she'd be like, no, I'm not going to let you see it. It's part of the medical school. You're in, whatever. So finally she relented. She's like, okay, fine. It was late one night. She's like, I'll let you see it. I'm like, yes. I'd never seen a cadaver. I didn't know. So it's covered by a sheet. We walk in. She lifts the sheet. I look at it. She puts the sheet down. We walk out of the room and I said, never, ever, ever, no matter how much I beg you, ever let me see anything like that again. It was awful. I'm sure to medical students, it's just run of the mill stuff. But to me, I didn't say anything neither. And she knew. She was like, I don't know why you want to see. I just wanted to see it. It was not a good choice. Not a good choice at all.
So it's basically it's a severed head, right?
Yeah. It was just head and neck, like on a stand.
Right.
Yeah. It had the neck.
Okay.
But it was nightmare material for me. And she knew it. And I begged her, and bless her heart, she finally got sick of me and just said, fine, here you go. She never looked at it because it was under a sheet when she would go in there. She would just put all the supplies for whatever they needed the next day for their labs and stuff. Please let me see it. But that's where you could end up if you donate your body to science in the front of a classroom under a sheet, which is very important. People need to learn.
Then we see Megan confronting Daniel. He tells her that her father, the dean, is not insane. He is dead.
And he says, it's true. She knows it. And he tells her everything.
Then we
don't see it, but he's telling her.
Then we see Herbert in his basement working, and Dr. Hill goes to visit him. Tells Herbert that he knows the dean is dead. And Dr. Hill blackmails Herbert. Makes him give him his serum, his discovery, and all of his notes. Otherwise, he will have him charged with murder.
And he hands it all over. Dr. Hill looks at it and is like, you're brilliant. This is brilliant.
Cut back to Megan and Daniel. They're going to Dr. Hill's office to see the dean. Megan tells Daniel that Dr. Hill did an exploratory surgery. Back in the basement lab, Herbert shows Dr. Hill how the reanimation serum works on dead tissue under a microscope, Karen.
Yes, the dead cat tissue.
As Dr. Hill looks into the microscope, Herbert grabs a spade and hits the doctor over the head with it, and then stabs him with it repeatedly, severing his head. He goes.
Yes. He hits him with the shovel. I'm like, oh.
It's a spade, Karen. It's a spade.
Okay, sorry. Sharp edge. Like, oh, he's now, oh. And I was going, oh. Is he going to behead? Oh, yeah, he's going to behead him. Yes. He does. He did.
So then Herbert decides, I think I'll inject Dr. Hill's head and his body, each with serum, and see what happens. For science.
He picks up the head and puts it in a tray. Yeah, for science.
On one of those things.
Oh, yeah. Like a receipt or
one of those nails
holder.
that you stick stuff on.
Stuff that you've done. Notes.
Didn't we look that up before?
I think we did.
Because it was used in another horror movie for a weapon or something.
New Year's Evil, I think, or something it was used.
Yeah. So then the Dr. Hill's head comes back to life, and Herbert talks to Dr. Hill's head as the body comes behind him and slams his head down on the table.
See, that's what I mean. I guess he didn't want either one to get old, because he wanted it to be fresh. But when you've tied the body up before you did it, I mean, let's think here, people. If have your scientific curiosity, sure, but be prepared. Learn from your data.
True.
You know,
true.
You know how strong that body's going to be if it comes back. You've already collected that data.
Yeah, they tied the dean to the table before they injected him.
Yeah, so let's use our data here properly. Don't just ignore your And he saw it in John Doe. So he's got two pieces of data. So this was not good thinking on Herbert's part here. I said, what is he thinking? But I would have just reanimated the head and taunted him because I'm petty like that.
What are you going to do now? You're going to bite my ankles?
Oh, you're going to be famous now? Ooh. Who's going to be famous?
So then Megan and Daniel, we're back to them in Dr. Hill's office, and they're going through his filing cabinet, or Daniel is. And while he's doing that, Megan decides to enter the padded room. Daniel finds a file that Dr. Hill has on Megan. It contains newspaper clippings and a lock of her hair, Karen.
Yes, and some clothing. It's like a scarf or something. Ugh. Creepy.
Is it, Karen?
That's probably the creepiest part of the whole movie. Someone as old as your dad collecting little trinkets and putting them in a file. Ugh.
So they learn that the dean has been lobotomized by Dr. Hill.
I know we've said this before, but just for a review, a lobotomy is a type of brain surgery that became popular in the 1930s as a treatment for mental health conditions such as schizophrenia. It involves severing the connection between the frontal lobe and the other parts of the brain.
Back in the basement, Herbert regains consciousness and finds the body and the head missing of Dr. Hill. The serum is also missing, as well as all his notes.
Yeah, he got cocky. He did not prepare properly.
Daniel arrives and Herbert tells him he had to kill Dr. Hill.
He was blackmailing me.
Yeah, I didn't want something to happen to you.
Right. I was worried about you.
I didn't want you to disappear.
Well, so he said Hill wanted him to disappear, which Daniel then realizes that Dr. Hill really wants Megan.
Then we see Dr. Hill's head and body arrive at his office.
I said, oh my God, he walked into his office with his head in a bucket. That's the funniest part of the movie, is what I said.
The body gives the head another injection of serum and then grabs a couple bags of blood and puts it in the tray with the head. So he's got plenty of blood now going to his brain.
That makes him very happy.
I'm not sure how it's going to his brain because it's not pumping.
Nope, it's just sitting in there. Osmosis, I guess.
Same with his breath or his, whatever.
There's no lungs, right?
His vocal cords or whatever, but don't let the details get in the way, Karen. Just enjoy the ride. So the body picks up the head and takes it to look at the dean in the padded room.
Yes, it's holding it by its hair.
And tells the dean it's time for him to come out now.
Okay, so at first I was like, well, wait a minute. He told Megan that her father can't see or hear her through the glass earlier. And then I was like, oh, no, he's in control of him. So he doesn't hear him. He hears him, but it's through like control. Yeah, he now has control of his brain.
Telepathy.
So subtle, but effective.
Then Dr. Hill goes to the morgue with the medical school head model on the body, wearing a mask and scrubs, right?
Yeah.
Carrying his head in a gym bag. Daniel goes to see Megan. He tells her he is worried about her. They tell each other they should each go away, but they just can't, Karen, because they're in love.
They're in love.
Just then, the dean busts through the door and smashes Daniel into a wall.
He slides down the back of his head, bleeding. He's got to at least have a concussion. That was bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh.
Back in the morgue, Dr. Hill's performing surgery on the corpses using his laser.
So he can control the body, which is very agile. Well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's knocking everything over, but sometimes it's finding exactly what it needs, turning on lights and all that kind of stuff.
And there's knocks at the door. The body opens the door and the dean brings in Megan to the morgue. Dean strips the clothes off his daughter, Megan.
But what? That didn't need to happen. Nobody else.
Are you sure, Karen?
Well, she's fully naked.
We see her bare breast again.
She's unconscious at that point.
Yeah. And it's pretty much a full frontal nudity thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Looking
100%.
down on her from like the back of her head. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hill straps her to the table.
But the head is next to her. So it's in that tray next to her. And it is just lecherous is the best word I can come up with.
Then Herbert finds Dan and kind of pulls him back into consciousness. Says, "Oh, you'll be fine." Looks at his head wound. It's only a flesh wound. Back in the morgue, we see Dr. Hill's body fondling Megan's breast.
Yeah, she's got one hand free. She gets free.
Yeah, Megan wakes up and screams. She frees her hand and knocks the medical model head off of Dr. Hill's body.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. She's screaming because now it's a headless body.
The body picks up Dr. Hill's head and puts it down to kiss Megan, and he professes his love for her, Karen.
He licks her ear.
Yes.
And then he kisses her inappropriately, is all I'm going to say. While the headless body's holding his head.
He's working his way down.
Yeah, so I don't know how far you saw, but we stopped right before the bottom.
Okay, well, his head was between her legs when I stopped. When I was watching. It was
pretty close. So it might have been the same.
Okay.
But it's just, ew. Like it gives you this ick feeling. I mean, I don't know who came up with that, but the headless body's holding the head. And I
guess H.P. Lovecraft, Karen.
Maybe, yeah. And so, but it definitely gives you the ick. Not just because he's 100 years older than she is, but it's just, what a nightmare. You would think, I mean, that would be a scary nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But she's living it. Then
Herbert comes in and interrupts the doctor.
Did you come to challenge me?
All the corpses in the morgue reanimate and attack Daniel and Megan.
So he says to West when he comes in, he says, "Do you have a plan? Because I do." And then immediately all the corpses, because Daniel snuck in and half covered Megan, and all the corpses stand up and start attacking everybody. And it's just chaos at that point.
Mm-hmm. And we see some more bare breasts while the corpses are attacking, because there's 2 female corpses as well. And all the corpses are nude.
Yes. Do you want to see power? I'll show you power, Dr. Hill says. And then he starts to lobotomize West.
Yeah, well, first, Herbert tries to inject Dr. Hill with more serum, but the doctor knocks it out of his hands.
That's true, because he's going to try to
Then he begins using his laser brain saw on Herbert.
Which takes an awful lot longer than it did the other times.
Yeah, and then the dean attacks Dr. Hill's body and tosses it out of the morgue. I guess because he's like having some
Megan's yelling at him.
Yeah.
Yes. Look at me. It's Megan. Look at me. And then he starts to protect Megan.
So he throws the body out. Then he grabs the head and begins squeezing it.
Yes, he does.
Crushing it.
And the poor guard outside sees the headless body walking around. But now he's squeezing. And it looked for a minute like all of the corpses were feeling what was happening.
Right.
To him.
Mm-hmm. They're connected telepathically somehow.
Yeah. The hive.
Yeah, so Dr. Hill's body attacks the dean. Herbert gets his serum and injects Dr. Hill's body with 2 syringes. Were the needles bothering you, Karen?
No.
Okay.
Because they weren't anywhere near where they needed to be. So it's fine.
The dean crushes Dr. Hill's head and throws it into the hallway. And then Dr. Hill's guts and intestines shoot out of him and grab Herbert.
Like a python.
Wrap around him.
Yeah, or an anaconda.
The reanimated corpses start to attack Dan and Megan again. The dean stops them, and the corpses tear the dean into pieces.
Yes.
Rip him limb from limb.
I said, did they tear apart the dean? I think they did.
Yeah.
I might not have seen all that.
They're just throwing arms and legs and heads and whatever.
It's just chaos. They're just knocking everything over. But when he squished the head of Dr. Hill, why didn't all their heads explode?
Oh, no.
Because they feel what he's feeling. Like when they're squishing his eyeballs out, they're all grabbing their eyeballs. But maybe they were freed once his head exploded. Maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Then Herbert, still being trapped by all the intestines and whatnot, throws his bag of notes to Dan and Megan as they are running out.
Because at this
Take my
point,
notes. Take my notes.
not only is he encircled in the intestines, they can't save him right then because there's toxic fumes everywhere, because the corpses have knocked over all kinds of chemicals they've mixed together, and Megan and Daniel have to leave or they're going to die. So he throws them the notes, which
Corpses.
Daniel takes, which I wouldn't have taken at that point, but whatever.
Corpses attack Daniel and Megan as they try to escape. Dan kills one by putting his fingers through his eyes. And he kills another that is attacking Megan using an axe.
But he has to run. So right when they think,
yeah, they're in
right
an
as
elevator.
they think they're getting away, yeah, the doors are closing. You think, oh, they're out.
A corpse walks in and starts strangling Megan.
Yes.
Daniel runs out, grabs a fire axe, breaks the glass and all that shit, runs back, chops the arm of the corpse off, but it's still holding on to Megan's throat, still strangling her. So he pulls it off, but she's basically been strangled now and she's gone.
Yeah.
So he begins to perform CPR on her. Then he takes her up to the ER, I guess from the elevator, once the elevator gets there, right?
Yeah.
They try to revive her, but she does not respond. She gone. They didn't go for 20 minutes though, Karen.
No, that was pretty quick. She suffocated pretty quickly and she died pretty quickly.
You see her breast again though as they do the clear.
She should have revived, but
so then everyone leaves to, I guess, let Daniel have a moment.
He has one.
So he grabs the serum and injects Megan with it. The screen goes black, but we still see the serum glowing. Do you see that?
Yes, yeah.
All you see is like the serum glowing and getting smaller, and then screen's black and we hear a scream.
Credits. Which I assume is Megan.
Yes, credits, the end.
And the whole place is crazy. It's chaotic, so they could have easily gotten out of there.
Yeah. I think there was a couple sequels.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we don't really know what's going on with Herbert either, right?
Right. We didn't see him die for sure. There was a piece of intestine over his mouth and squeezing him. So not looking good. But at the same time, people were arriving. So maybe they unwound him.
There were two sequels, Bride of the Reanimator and Beyond the Reanimator.
Have you seen either one?
No, haven't.
Were the same people in it?
Yep. I know Jeffrey Combs was. Yeah, he was in Bride and he was in both. So the guy who played Herbert was in both. He might have been the only returning cast member, though. In 2011, a musical adaptation opened in New York. The musical.
Oh, my God.
Reanimator, the musical. Hi, Karen. What did you think of the Miskatonic Reviver?
It's good.
I thought it was going to be similar to, I couldn't remember what was in them, but those Corpse Revivers we've done. I think we've done two of them. Corpse Reviver 1 and Corpse Reviver number 2.
I don't know. I remember doing 2. I don't remember.
I thought it was going to be a takeoff on that because it was called Reviver,
Yeah.
But I don't think it is. I don't think I remember like those much. They might have had absinthe in it or something.
Maybe. Go back and look.
This one's pretty good. This one's almost a Lanai drink.
That's what I said. It's Lanai like.
Yeah, we did Corpse Reviver number 2. This is the cocktail we did. Yeah, and this gin, absinthe, Lillet Blanc, Cointreau, and lemon juice. This is much better. Much, much better. What did we learn today, Karen?
We learned about the short story by Lovecraft. We learned about the green fluorescent protein from jellyfish, what a lobotomy is, whether corpses bleed or not, how much an autopsy saw would put you back, what the National Science Foundation is, and how long doctors attempt CPR. It was a full day.
It was a full day, Karen. I'm tired.
I don't know if I have room for all that information.
That's a full day. All right. Next film, I believe, is your choice, Karen.
It is.
And what film have you chosen for us?
Well, Greg, I have chosen the 1932 movie White Zombie.
Any reason you chose that film, Karen?
Well, I was just going with a zombie theme in October for Halloween.
For our last episode before Halloween.
Yes, I like the idea of zombies.
Okay. Might you have a cocktail?
I do.
And what would that be?
It's from food.com and it's called The Witch Doctor. It's a tasty tropical cocktail.
What are we going to need for that?
We're going to need light rum, coconut rum, orange juice, cranberry juice, dark rum, a maraschino cherry, and an orange slice.
Sounds delicious.
It sounds familiar too, but I looked for it and we haven't done it. So
Okay.
very similar to other drinks, but it'll be tasty, that's for sure.
Got lots of rum, so I'm going to like it. All right. Well, I look forward to that then. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, as always, Greg, I'd like to thank our listener. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Thank you for spending time with us. What about you, Greg? Who do you need to thank?
As usual, I'm going to thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please do CPR for longer than a minute and drink responsibly.
Not the same time, though.
No. Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.